At 23, I thought I knew who I was, until I met Ethan and Miles. Two souls who lit up my world then tore it apart. This is a story of love, betrayal, and the fight to be myself against a world that wouldn't understand. Get ready for a journey through heartbreak and hope, because sometimes, the hardest battles leave you stronger. At 25, I thought I had life figured out, or at least I pretended I did. I was just another face in the crowd, clocking into a gray cubicle in downtown Chicago every morning, chasing deadlines and a paycheck. My days were predictable: black coffee at 8 a.m., a quick scroll through emails, and the occasional call from my mom reminding me to go to church on Sunday. It wasn't exciting, but it was safe. That was all I needed, or so I told myself, until the night I met Aiden and Cole. It was a Friday, one of those crisp fall evenings where the air smells faintly of bonfires and the city hums with people escaping their routines. I'd ended up at a dive bar a few blocks from my apartment, not looking for anything special, just a beer and some quiet. The place was packed, all chipped wooden tables and dim lighting, the kind of spot where you could blend in if you wanted to. I was nursing a lukewarm IPA at the bar when I heard a laugh, bright, unapologetic, cutting through the low buzz of conversation like sunlight through fog. I glanced over, and there he was, Aiden. He was leaning against the counter, chatting with the bartender like they were old friends. His brown hair caught the light just right, and his hazel eyes sparkled with a warmth that made you want to lean in closer. He wore a faded green flannel that looked like it had been through 100 washes, and when he smiled, a wide, genuine grin that showed off a dimple on his left cheek, it was impossible not to smile back. He caught me staring, and instead of looking away, he waved me over. "Hey, you look like you could use some company," he said, his voice smooth and easy, like he'd known me forever. "I'm Aiden. What's your name?" "Jake," I managed, my throat suddenly dried despite the beer in my hand. Yeah, sure. Company sounds good." Before I could overthink it, he slid a stool my way, and I sat down. That's when I noticed the guy next to him, Cole. Where Aiden was all light and warmth, Cole was shadow and edge. He had jet black hair that fell into his eyes, a leather jacket slung over one shoulder, and a tattoo peeking out from under his sleeve, a jagged line that hinted at a story I wasn't sure I wanted to know. His green eyes flicked toward me, sharp and assessing, like he was sizing me up. He didn't say anything at first, just took a slow sip of his whiskey and smirked, like he already knew something I didn't. "Cole," he finally said, nodding once. His voice was low, gravelly, the kind that made your stomach flip if you let it. "Aiden's too friendly for his own good. Don't let him rope you into anything stupid." Aiden laughed again, nudging Cole with his elbow. "Oh, come on, don't scare him off already. Jake's cool, I can tell." I wasn't sure how he could tell anything about me after 30 seconds, but the way he said it made me want to believe him. We started talking, small stuff at first, like the overpriced drinks, and the Cubs game playing on the TV above the bar. Aiden was a barista at a coffee shop a few streets over, the kind of guy who remembered everyone's order and made you feel like you mattered. Cole, on the other hand, was a freelance photographer, always chasing the next shot, the next moment. They were opposites in every way, but somehow they fit together, like puzzle pieces I didn't know I'd been missing. The night slipped away too fast. One beer turned into 2, then 3, and suddenly we were spilling out onto the sidewalk, the neon sign buzzing above us as the bar closed up. Aiden clapped me on the shoulder, his touch lingering just a second longer than it needed to. "We should do this again, Jake. You're good people." "Yeah," Cole added, lighting a cigarette and blowing a thin stream of smoke into the night air. "You're not as boring as you look." His smirk softened the jab, but it still sent a jolt through me, half irritation, half something I couldn't name. I laughed, more out of nerves than anything else. "Thanks, I guess. I'll take that as a compliment." "It was," Aiden said with a wink, and my chest tightened in a way I hadn't felt in years. As I walked home that night, the city lights blurring around me, I couldn't shake them from my head. Aiden's laugh echoed in my ears, bright and alive. Cole's gaze lingered in my mind, piercing and unreadable. I didn't know it then, but that chance meeting was the spark that would set my whole world on fire. Two men, two forces pulling me in directions I'd never dared to go. And me, caught in the middle, too scared to admit what I was starting to feel, but too drawn in to walk away. The next few weeks felt like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. Aiden, Cole, and I fell into an easy rhythm, grabbing drinks after work, wandering the gritty streets of Chicago, or crashing at Aiden's tiny apartment with its mismatched furniture and coffee-stained countertops. Aiden was the glue, always pulling us together with his effortless charm. He'd text me in the middle of the day. "Hey Jake, saved you a latte. Swing by?" And I'd find myself grinning like an idiot at my desk. Cole was harder to pin down, showing up when he felt like it, but when he did, his presence filled the room. He'd toss out sharp-witted comments or lean in close to show me a photo he'd taken, a stark black and white shot of the skyline that somehow felt alive, and I'd catch myself holding my breath. It wasn't just friendship. I knew that early on, even if I didn't want to admit it. With Aiden, it was simple. His warmth made me feel safe, like I could let my guard down for the first time in years. One night, sprawled on his couch with a cheap beer in hand, I told him something I'd never said out loud. "I've never really dated guys before," I mumbled, staring at the ceiling to avoid his eyes. "Not seriously." He didn't flinch. "Yeah? Well, no rush, Jake. You figure it out when you're ready." His voice was soft, steady, and when I finally looked at him, his smile was so genuine it knocked the air out of me. "I'm into guys too, if that helps." No big deal. It did help, more than I could say. For the first time, I felt seen, not judged. But then there was Cole. He was a storm I couldn't predict, intense, magnetic, and a little dangerous. He'd catch my eye across the table, holding my gaze just long enough to make my pulse race, then look away like nothing happened. Once, when Aiden stepped out to grab more drinks, Cole leaned in close, his voice a low rumble. "You're not as straight as you think, are you?" I froze, my face burning, but he just smirked and pulled back, leaving me rattled. The tension between the three of us was building, a tightrope I was trying to walk without falling. I didn't know what I wanted, or who, but I couldn't stop myself from wanting both of them in different ways. That was the problem. And then the outside world started closing in. It started with my family. My parents are old school, the kind of people who think church on Sunday fixes everything. I'd always kept my life vague with them. Work's fine, yeah, I'm eating enough, no, I haven't found a nice girl yet. But one Saturday, my mom called while I was out with Aiden and Cole. I'd posted a photo of us on Instagram the night before, nothing crazy, just the three of us laughing outside a taco joint. I didn't think twice about it until her voice came through the line, sharp and cold. "Jacob, who are those boys you're with?" she asked, her tone clipped. "People are talking. Your aunt saw that picture and asked if you're one of those people." I felt my stomach drop. "They're just friends, Mom," I said, forcing a laugh. "It's not a big deal." "It is a big deal," she snapped. "We raised you better than that. You know what the Bible says. If you're choosing this lifestyle, you're not our son anymore." The line went quiet, and then my dad's voice cut in, low and final. "Fix it, Jake. Or don't come home." The call ended, and I stood there on the sidewalk, Aiden and Cole a few steps ahead, oblivious. My hand shook as I shoved my phone into my pocket. I'd known they wouldn't understand, but hearing it out loud, "You're not our son," felt like a punch to the chest. I wanted to tell Aiden, to spill it all, but when I caught up, Cole was watching me, his green eyes narrow. "You okay?" he asked, flicking ash from his cigarette. "You look like someone died." "Yeah, fine," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just family stuff." He didn't push, but the way he looked at me said he didn't buy it. Aiden, oblivious, slung an arm around my shoulders. "Come on, let's get food. You need tacos after a day like today." His touch was warm, grounding, but it couldn't erase the ache in my gut. That night things cracked further. We were at a bar again, the same one where we'd met, when Cole pulled me aside. Aiden was at the jukebox, picking some cheesy 80s song, and Cole's voice was low, edged with something I couldn't place. "You told him, didn't you? About liking guys?" I nodded, confused. "Yeah, so?" His jaw tightened. "So you didn't tell me." "What? I don't get to know. You picking him over me already?" His words were sharp, jealous, and they hit me like a slap. "It's not like that," I stammered. It came up with him first." "Right. he said, his smirk bitter. Guess I'm the odd one out. He turned away, grabbing his jacket, and left without another word. Aiden came back, grinning, but his face fell when he saw mine. Where's Cole? He asked. Gone, I said, my voice hollow. I don't know. The tightrope was fraying. My family's rejection stung, but Cole's reaction twisted the knife deeper. I cared about him, too much, and I cared about Aiden too. But the pressure was mounting, and I didn't know how long I could keep this balancing act going before it all came crashing down. The days after Cole stormed out were a blur of silence and guilt. He didn't text, didn't show up, just vanished into the Chicago sprawl like a ghost. Aiden tried to fill the gap, his usual brightness a lifeline I clung to. He'll come around, he'd say, handing me a coffee with that dimpled smile. Cole's just Cole. I nodded, wanting to believe him, but the empty space where Cole used to be gnawed at me. I missed his sharp edges, the way he challenged me without even trying. And then there was Aiden, steady, kind, everything I thought I needed. I was drowning in both of them, and I didn't know how to surface. It all shattered one Tuesday night. I'd been at work late, staring at spreadsheets until my eyes burned, when my coworker Ryan slid into the chair next to me. He was a loudmouth, always bragging about his weekend hookups, but we got along fine. That night, though, his grin was different, smug, knowing. So, Jake, he said, leaning in too close. You and that photographer guy, Cole, right? You exclusive or what? I froze, my pen hovering over the desk. What are you talking about? He laughed, low and mean. Oh, come on. He was at my place last night. Said you two were tight, but I guess not that tight. He winked, and my stomach churned. Good lay, though. You're missing out. The words hit like a freight train. Cole, with Ryan. Last night. I mumbled something about needing air and bolted, my chest tight, my head spinning. The cold October wind slapped my face as I stumbled outside, but it didn't clear the image burning in my mind. Cole, the guy I'd let in, tangled up with someone else. Someone who wasn't me. I didn't want to believe it, but Ryan's smirk was too real, too cruel to be a lie. I found Cole the next day outside his favorite dive bar, leaning against the brick wall with a cigarette dangling from his lips. He didn't flinch when he saw me, just exhaled a slow stream of smoke and met my eyes. Figured you'd show up eventually, he said, voice flat. Is it true? I demanded, my hands shaking. You slept with Ryan? He didn't deny it. Just shrugged, like it was nothing. Yeah. So what? It's not like we're together, Jake. You made that clear when you picked Aiden. Picked Aiden? My voice cracked. I didn't pick anyone. I told him something I couldn't tell you because you shut down every time I try. And this is what you do? Screw my coworker to get back at me? His smirk faded, replaced by something harder. It wasn't about you. I don't owe you anything. You're the one playing both sides, stringing us along. I just got tired of waiting. I wanted to scream, to hit him, anything to make the hurt stop. But all I could do was stare at him, the guy I'd let crawl under my skin, and feel the betrayal sink deeper. You're an asshole, I whispered, turning away before he could see the tears stinging my eyes. Aiden was waiting when I got to his place. I hadn't planned to go there, but my feet carried me anyway. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without a word. What happened? He asked, his hands gentle on my shoulders. Cole, I choked out. He slept with Ryan. From work. He doesn't care, he doesn't care. Aiden's face fell, but he didn't hesitate. He pulled me into a hug, his arms warm and solid, and for a minute, I let myself break. I'm sorry, Jake, he murmured. You don't deserve that. But the comfort didn't last. The anger bubbled up, and I pushed him away. Don't, I snapped. I don't deserve anything. This is my fault, I let it get this far. I can't trust him, I can't trust you, I can't trust myself. I was yelling now, my voice raw. I'm a mess, Aiden. Just leave me alone. He stepped back, hurt flickering in his hazel eyes, but he didn't argue. Okay, he said quietly. If that's what you need. I stormed out, the door slamming behind me, and the silence that followed was deafening. Then came the social media storm. Someone, I don't know who, posted about me on a local Twitter thread. "Office queer spotted at the bar again." Pathetic. It spread fast, likes and retweets piling up, strangers chiming in with slurs and laughing emojis. My phone buzzed with a DM. "Freak. Stay out of our city." I deleted the app, but the words stuck, clawing at me. Work was worse, whispers in the break room, Ryan's smug glances. My parents hadn't called since their ultimatum, but I could hear my mom's voice in my head. "You're not our son." I locked myself in my apartment that weekend, blinds drawn, lights off. Cole's betrayal, Aiden's kindness I couldn't accept, the hate from people I didn't even know. It was too much. I sat on the floor, staring at nothing, and wondered if this was what I got for trying to be myself. The cracks weren't just forming anymore, they'd split wide open, and I was falling through. The darkness in my apartment became a cage after that weekend. I turned off my phone, ignored the world, and let the silence swallow me whole. Cole's betrayal replayed in my head like a broken record, his careless shrug, the sting of his words. Aiden's hurt expression haunted me too, a reminder of how I'd pushed away the one person still in my corner. And then there were the voices, my parents' rejection, the venom online, the whispers at work. They piled up, heavy and suffocating, until I couldn't tell where their hate ended and my own began. I was drowning, and I didn't know how to fight my way out. It was Monday morning when I hit bottom. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, just sat there staring at the wall until my eyes burned. The thought crept in, quiet but insistent, maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong anywhere. It scared me, not because it was loud, but because it felt true. That's when I knew I couldn't keep going like this. I needed help, real help, or I'd lose myself completely. I found a therapist online, Dr. Ellis, a woman with a kind voice and no judgment in her tone. My first session was over the phone because I couldn't face leaving my apartment. "Tell me what's going on, Jake," she said, calm and steady. I spilled it all, Cole, Aiden, my family, the hate online. My voice shook, but she didn't interrupt, just listened. When I finished, she said something that stuck. "You're not wrong for existing, Jake. You're not broken for loving who you do. The people hurting you, they're the ones who need to figure themselves out." It wasn't a fix, but it was a lifeline. I started seeing her twice a week, unraveling the mess inside me. She asked hard questions. Why do you think you deserve this pain? What do you want for yourself? I didn't have answers at first, but slowly, I started to see it. I'd been punishing myself for things I couldn't control. My family's rejection wasn't my fault. Cole's choices weren't my burden. The hate online was just noise from strangers who didn't know me. I had to stop letting it define me. Cutting Cole out was the first real step. He texted a few days after our fight. "Jake, I messed up. Can we talk?" But I didn't reply. When he showed up at my building, I met him outside, arms crossed, my voice cold. "We're done, Cole. You don't get to hurt me and act like it's nothing. I'm not your punching bag." His green eyes flickered, regret maybe, but he didn't argue. "I'm sorry," he said, quiet for once. "I didn't mean to." "You did." I cut him off. "And I'm done pretending it's okay." He nodded, shoved his hands in his pockets, and walked away. Watching him go felt like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. It hurt, but it was freedom too. Aiden was harder. He hadn't reached out since I'd yelled at him, and I didn't blame him. I'd lashed out because I was scared of trusting him, scared of losing him too. But the more I talked to Dr. Ellis, the more I realized I couldn't let that fear win. One evening, I showed up at his coffee shop just before closing. He was wiping down the counter, his back to me, and my heart pounded as I stepped inside. "Jake?" He turned, surprise softening his face. "What are you doing here?" "I owe you an apology," I said, my voice unsteady. "I freaked out, and I took it out on you. You didn't deserve that. I was a mess." He set the rag down, his hazel eyes searching mine. "You don't have to explain. I get it. I just wish you'd let me help." "I didn't know how," I admitted. "I'm still figuring it out. But I miss you, Aiden. I don't want to lose what we have." He stepped closer, hesitating, then pulled me into a hug. It was simple, quiet, no words, just his arms around me, steady and warm. "You won't," he whispered. "I'm here." I clung to him, tears prickling my eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. But the world wasn't done testing me. A letter came from my parents, handwritten, formal, like a legal notice. "Jacob, we've prayed for you, but you've chosen a path we can't accept. Don't contact us again unless you repent." It was signed by both of them, my mom's cursive neat, my dad's scrawl heavy. I read it once, then tore it up, my hands shaking. They'd made their choice, and it hurt, God, it hurt, but I wouldn't let it break me. Not anymore. I was fighting now, clawing my way back to myself. Aiden was a quiet strength beside me, but I knew I had to stand on my own too. The cracks were still there, raw and jagged, but I was starting to see light through them, a chance to rebuild, to be the Jake I'd buried under everyone else's expectations. The weeks after that night at Aiden's coffee shop felt like waking up from a long, bruising dream. I wasn't whole, not yet, but I was piecing myself back together, one shaky step at a time. Therapy with Dr. Ellis kept me grounded, forcing me to face the things I'd run from, the guilt, the fear, the ache of losing my family. Aiden was there too, not pushing, just present, his quiet support a tether when I felt like drifting away. But the choice I'd been avoiding still loomed, heavy and inevitable. I couldn't keep hovering between what was and what could be. I had to decide, not just for Aiden, not just for Cole, but for me. It hit me one freezing December evening, the kind where Chicago's wind cuts through your coat like a blade. I was walking home from work, the skyline glowing against the dark, when I saw a couple ahead of me, two guys, hands linked, laughing as they ducked into a diner. They looked so easy, so sure, and something in me cracked open. I wanted that, not the chaos Cole brought, not the limbo I'd trapped myself in, but something real. And I knew, standing there with my breath fogging in the air, that it was Aiden. It had always been Aiden. I didn't wait. I turned around, headed straight to his place, my heart hammering with every step. When he opened the door, his hair messy from a long shift, his hazel eyes widened in surprise. "Jake? Everything okay?" "No," I said, stepping inside, my voice trembling but sure. "It's not okay. I've been an idiot, Aiden. I've been scared, of you, of this, of everything. But I'm done running. I choose you. It's you, and it's always been you. I love you." For a second, he just stared, like he wasn't sure he'd heard me right. Then his face softened, that dimpled smile breaking through, and he pulled me into his arms. "You mean that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, warm against my ear. "I do," I said, tears spilling over despite myself. "I can't imagine my life without you. You're everything I need." He held me tighter, his breath hitching, and when he pulled back, his eyes were shining. "I love you too, Jake. I've been waiting for you to figure it out." Then he kissed me, soft, certain, like a promise, and the weight I'd carried for months melted away. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't painless, but it was us, and that was enough. Cole found out soon after. I hadn't seen him since our last fight, but he showed up at my apartment one night, his leather jacket dusted with snow. He looked tired, the sharpness in his green eyes dulled. "Heard you're with Aiden now," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Guess I lost." "It wasn't a game," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "You made your choices, Cole. I had to make mine." He nodded, slow and resigned. "Yeah. I fucked up. I know that. I thought maybe you'd pick me." He laughed, bitter and small. "Stupid, right?" "No," I said softer. "Not stupid. Just not us." He didn't argue, just gave me a faint smirk, the old Cole peeking through, and walked away, his footsteps fading into the night. I felt a pang, a ghost of what might have been, but no regret. He'd face his consequences alone, and I hoped he'd find his way. But he wasn't my fight anymore. Life with Aiden wasn't a fairy tale. We argued sometimes, about dumb stuff like whose turn it was to do dishes, or bigger things, like my lingering trust issues. But we worked through it together. A few months later, we moved into a cramped one-bedroom near Lake Michigan, the kind with creaky floors and a view of the water if you squinted. It was ours, though, a space we built from scratch, free of the shadows I'd left behind. My parents never came around. The letter was their final word, and I stopped hoping for more. It stung less with time, not because I didn't care, but because I'd found a family in Aiden, in the friends who stuck by me, in the life I was carving out. The hate online faded too, drowned out by the quiet strength I was growing into. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was Jake, messy, scarred, but finally myself. One night, under a sky full of stars, Aiden and I sat on our tiny balcony, wrapped in a blanket against the chill. His hand found mine, fingers lacing through, and he smiled, that warm, steady smile that still made my heart skip. "You're enough, you know," he said. "Just you." I leaned into him, the city humming below us, and felt it, hope, real and solid. Love wasn't easy. It was a fight, a choice, a risk. But with Aiden, it was worth it. And for the first time, I believed I was too.